Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's another honor and privilege to be connected. And today it's really an awesome day. I'm super excited for the guest of honor that we have today. I think for me, when I look at what he has achieved and what he's still achieving, as we call the GOAT. So he's the GOAT in branding and marketing, a guru specialist. So with us today, we have the honor and the privilege of having Dr. Thebe Ikalafeng. It's an honor to have him here. He's the founder of Brand Africa and Brand Leadership Group, among many other great initiatives that he has done. And he has been conferred his honoris causa PhD with both the University of Johannesburg and the University of South Africa. And he has achieved lifetime accolades. The list is on and on. So with us today, we have really the honor of having the legend in person. And I know that this will be a fascinating episode. Welcome to our program, Baba.
Thank you so much, man.
So we are really honored to have you here and really looking forward to draw from your fountain of wisdom. And as we all know, our program really focuses on the journey to the top, where we are able to dive into a great African leaders' journey, what really made them who they are, and some of the great advices that they are able to give us. And starting with Doc with us today will be just for us to understand your background. I think for us, it's really looking at what you have achieved and even going through the material. We just want to understand exactly the setup and the upbringing of Dr. Thebe.
Well, my upbringing, thank you so much. My upbringing is typical. It's typical of many South African children born under apartheid. So I was born and raised in the township. I lived with my grandmother because my mother was working as a nurse, training and working as a nurse in different parts of South Africa. So I lived with my grandparents, which was also a bit typical as well.
Yes.
Typical for us growing that time, that you, even if your mother was in the same town, you'd be living with your grandparents. So I lived with my grandparents. I did all my formal, my primary studies in Kimberley, the capital of diamonds. So
exactly.
It doesn't show it today, but we're supposed to be the capital of diamonds because I come from there.
Yes.
So, but I'm thinking we are the diamonds of Kimberley. So we're the ones who can bring the shine back.
Wow.
So I was born and raised there, and I went to school there at St. Boniface. And I left there in 1986. Wow. To come to South Africa, to Johannesburg. Yeah. How do you say Joburg in South Africa? It gets me in trouble with everybody else. But to come to Johannesburg, to study at Wits, and I left Wits. After 2.5 years, and I moved to the States to go complete what was supposed to be my accounting degree.
Wow!
And then when I arrived there, a friend of mine said to me, Tlanta, he's late now, Tlanta Khadeb, says, why are you you're in America as well? I say, yes, of course. He says, what are you coming to do here? So to finish my accounting degree and go back home. In 2 years, he says, what's the rush? Relax. He says, besides, you're not an accountant. So you're more like a marketer. So take your time, relax, and study what looks natural and feels natural to you. And then you can go home with something in your hands. There's nobody here who's going to judge you because they all don't know you.
Wow.
And that's sort of my brief starting point. And I went to school I've never heard of.
Wow.
And I think I learned as time goes that it really doesn't matter where you go to learn or where you go to play. It's what you do with what you got out of there. So I went to a school called Marquette University, the Jesuit University. What's interesting that when I found it as a Jesuit, I'm like, wow. So I went to Catholic primary, Catholic creche, Catholic primary, Catholic high school, Catholic university. So that's where I got my entire upbringing, my teachings.
Wow.
I did my undergraduate and I did my MBA a long time ago.
Wow. No, I know a long time ago.
Like 35 years ago, I think.
That's
It's a long
awesome.
time.
A long time
Right?
ago. Yes. And
So-
and really if we would like to bring you a bit back, because especially your conversation with your friend, as you wanted to pursue accounting, and he said, no. We can see the natural flow of marketing. And if you have to trace it, were there anything as you were growing up and very young, because I know that you are always a purposeful person, and were there any sign at that particular moment which was already talking about marketing and branding?
I don't know. If you go with the stereotypical marketing,
Yes.
because we like to assess the stereotype of a marketer,
Yeah.
that people think that you're always communicating, always selling ideas, always engaging with people. If you go with that as the template of marketing, then of course I grew up like that. I was in church choir, I was an altar boy, I was always teaching my friends, I was always part of I was always in the midst of people. In the midst of people. So if that's what a marketer looks like, and even when Sibusiso speaks about that, because he met me at Wits,
Yeah.
and he saw how I used to engage with people. There's always people that surrounding me. I always used to hold court, as I always say, people. I always be surrounded by people, be talking, selling something, nothing but just ideas.
Yes.
And so if that's how a marketer behaves, then you can say, I guess I've been a marketer all my life. But to me, I thought I did well in mathematics and science. So the options were either I become a doctor,
Yeah.
or I do teaching, because I always used to teach,
Yeah.
or I do accounting. But I did accounting because my head boy, deputy head boy around that time, had gone to Wits to study accounting. And he was a head boy, like I became a head boy. He was top of the class math and science, a bit like I was number one and number two in that space. And he was number one across his school years, and I was number one across my school years. So I thought, that's what people like that do. So that's why I went to do accounting.
Wow.
And so following what other people like you are doing,
exactly.
instead of following who you are.
Yes.
But I wasn't stressed or nervous. I mean, of course, my first I failed accounting first year, and I passed it second year. But I don't think I failed anyway, because in June I got 56 for business economics, 69 for accounting, 72 for law. Now, during apartheid, those were good scores for black kids.
Wow.
And that's in June. And in December, I get 47, 47, 47. I said it's impossible. It's impossible to be equally dumb, in all the subjects.
In all the subjects,
And
yes.
then but around that time, it was interesting in South Africa, because around that time, they used to manage how many people move through
the system.
through the system, particularly if you're in a white school, because Wits was very white then. So I didn't go to like Treflopo, which were generally the black schools, or the University of Botswana, and any of us. I went to Wits University, which was the most prestigious university in the country. And those schools generally, they managed how many people go. And now in accounting was even better, or even worse rather, because when I got to Wits, I think there was only 1,200 black people or people of color, Indian black and colored, in accounting, registered as accountants. The rest of them were all white. And they kept it like that for a long time. It was a very managed and an exclusive, if you will,
System.
Career choice and all those. So to make it so they can't push all of us through. So some of us are going to get 49, 49, 49. I must 48, 48, 48. I got 47, 47, 47.
Which was a magic number for
magic
it to
number.
be.
How could anybody get the same numbers?
Wow.
It didn't make sense. There are some people, by the way, around that time who used to get 49, 49, 49, 49, 49 for 5 subjects.
Wow.
Because 50 is the pass mark. So they had to keep you just below the pass mark.
Wow. And now, how did you manage it normally in that particular? Because that could also be frustrating, right? Because the effort maybe that you put in and your previous performance.
Yeah, effort and performance. That I was always a number one student.
Yes.
I was I knocked off a little bit? Maybe I knocked off a little bit, but disappointed in me maybe, because maybe I said I live to outperform myself in order to proceed. So I had to outperform myself the following year. And then I took the opportunity to apply for scholarship. and left the country. They were lucky those times. I'm looking at now Donald Trump taking away USAID. Some of us are USAID's beneficiaries.
Wow.
Because USAID funded EOC, I think Educational Opportunities Council, which then funded scholarships to go study overseas.
Wow.
So some of us benefited from that.
Yeah. Which is great. And back in the days, how was it for you, especially coming from Kimberley? Now you moved to Joburg, you are in the Vert, and then the next move is to go abroad, which was again something really new to an African youngster.
Well, I was always very strong-willed, always confident, always clear about who I am. So even when I arrived in Joburg, I stood out. I was never intimidated by Johannesburg.
Wow.
I just fitted in to where Joburg is. When I moved to America, it was the same thing. And it sounds crazy, I guess, or maybe self-important when I say so, but I remember specifically, when I arrived in America, the kids used to say, "You are so confident.
You are full of yourself.
You're so full of yourself. This country will humble you." But that's the same thing they told me when I got to Joburg. They said, You're so full of yourself. This city will humble you. But I chose to humble the city rather than the city to humble me.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And with that, and when we look at it, even in the space, because this is quite relevant, where you are always finding this type of imposter syndrome, especially in the youth, even when we're looking at situation like social media and all of it. What are these key things that you believe are very important for the youth of today or anybody today to really overcome this challenge? Because social media really is pushing us to be who you are not.
Who we're not, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's such a lack of authenticity, as you said now,
Yes.
in society, because we need to live up to other people's ideas about who we should be.
Yes.
I think what we need to do, we need to get back to ourselves. We need to get back to ourselves. We need to understand the values that brought us. Because we all get raised with a certain set of values. So we need to understand what are those values. We need to be authentic, because you see, your values are your foundation. And authenticity ensures that you always stay true to yourself.
Yes.
The mistake that most of us make is because we are living for the other and not living for ourselves. And as a result, we always get tripped. Because you see, if you're not living your best truth, if you're not living your truth, you'll always get tripped because you don't know the other as well.
Yes.
But you know yourself better.
Wow.
So it's about you sticking to who you are, the values that brought you here, your authentic self. That's what will take you through to the next, for me, or rather will take you through the storms and through the valleys and the hills. And social media, of course, is a problem now. It's a problem because we all now have to act like we are not.
Yes.
But many of us always get caught out anyway.
Yeah.
We'll always get caught out if you're not living who you are, and particularly in terms of you can only pretend for so long. We are seeing even in corporate now,
yes,
people get caught out because for maybe 5 years or 10 years or 30 years, they were using fake qualifications.
Yes, yes.
Because they wanted to be who they're not, instead of just going to school and getting the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you get caught. You've seen people 30 years later, they get caught.
Wow.
And some of them, for example, in South Africa now,
yes,
we've seen some executives who've been jailed for fraudulent qualifications.
Wow.
And transacting or pretending to be what they are not.
Yes.
So you always get caught. We may not all end up in jail.
Yes.
But sometimes we'll end up being ostracized by society.
Yes.
Because the shame of being caught out for having been untruthful to yourself is worse than
any job.
It's worse than being yourself.
Yeah.
And the mistake that we make, we think where we are is a problem. Where you are is just a stepping stone to the next.
Wow.
And we have to walk at our own pace because we don't all going to arrive at the same time. Correct. Wherever we're headed. Some of us may be fast movers, others slow movers. But ultimately, we are going to live up, we are going to arrive to what we are destined to be. Because every single one of us is not useless. Every single one of us has got a purpose on this earth.
Wow.
And ultimately, we will reach that purpose if we stay true to who we are and using the values that we raised with as the foundation.
Wow. Wow. Love it. Love it. Love it. And I love the practical side of it. And then coming into purpose, because I know that purpose is really important for us. In terms of purpose, and I really want to connect it to that move from accounting into your field. When you have to define purpose, where you are, how do you define purpose?
Well, I think purpose, finding your purpose,
Yes,
is a process. Yeah. And I think it takes time. You have to be patient with yourself, but you have to be self-aware most importantly.
Wow.
Because purpose is finding the thing that makes that you would do even if you weren't getting paid. But the thing that you believe that you are made, you're born to be on this earth. That's purpose. Wow. Is finding the thing, as Martin Luther King said, unless you find something that you're willing to die for, then you will fall for anything. Wow. So purpose is finding that anchor, that eyes on the prize, the one thing that you believe, I'm put on this earth to do this. And whether, in my instance, in my case, if you look at it from a marketing perspective, first it starts off as a job.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes, because that's what happens. Sometimes it starts as an encounter or as a job. And then as you're going through the job, you begin to see how the job changes, impacts, transforms. And then if you're self-aware and you're all aware, you then begin to see that, especially when you feel that, this job, I'm loving it. Whether I get paid or not, I'll be doing this job.
Yes, for the rest of my life.
For the rest of my life. So it's a combination of passion and purpose, right?
Yeah.
And when you are doing that, you then begin to understand that perhaps this is what I should be doing for a living. And if we can get paid for it, even better.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus.
It's really a bonus.
But you don't start with the money.
Yeah.
You start with the difference you want to make, the impact you want to leave, the legacy you want to leave behind, the changes that you want to bring. Asking yourself, with the talent that I've been given, with the situation as I see it, the opportunities that are presented to me, how can I leave this world a little better than I found it?
Wow.
L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, says something so beautiful. He says, at the end of our lives, we're going to be asked two questions. The first question we'll be asked is, did you do the things you were meant to do? And the second is, did the people who knew you think your life was worth living? Wow. That's purpose.
Wow. Wow. I love it. I love it. And that's why we have the guru with us who's really taking us into that level. So that's awesome. And then now, if we have to bring it to you, the purpose, as you say, it's a process, and you need to be patient and have the self-awareness, as you've mentioned. Now, when you got into your field, in the US, when you changed from accounting into marketing, what was the feeling when you got into that space? Did it click immediately,
it never clicks immediately?
Wow.
So to me, matter of fact, I think the predecessor to purpose is joy, it's happiness.
Yes.
Because I think you must first be happy with the choices. So if you're happy with the choices and you're passionate about them, they will lead you to your purpose. So for me, it started off like everybody else, like a job. A job at Colgate in New York, Colgate in South Africa, Sun International, Leo Burnett or PR International, and then Nike. But I think, when I got to Nike, I really got the idea of why people do what they do.
Wow.
When, they were explaining the foundations of Nike, and they were saying, Bill Bauman, the coach, and Phil Knight used to go to sports field and they'll sit around there and they'll take the shoes and they'll customize them to the athlete because I wanted the athletes to perform a bit better.
Yes.
So they didn't say we want to make money. They say we want to improve the performances of individual athletes because one was a coach and one was an athlete.
Yeah.
They love sports. They say, how can we make the sports people be even better?
Wow.
So, and I was like, and he built a whole business out of it. And I said, that's how purpose feels like, what it sounds like when you found your thing. And Judith always spoke about it with such great joy. And I said, that's how purpose looks like. And to me, you would say, then I went to Colgate, then I came here, I got to Nike, I began to do that. Then I started my own firm, brand leadership. Then I started working again, trying to create brands or help brands to shape brands. In that process as well, then I began to see the own challenges and opportunities in the continent.
Yeah.
And then as I began to say, but with what I know, can I make a difference?
Wow.
What I know about branding, about marketing, maybe I can play a role to reduce the gap between our potential and our current. Because if you look at only 20% of the brands that Africans admire are made in Africa.
Yes.
This is an 80% opportunity. It means that Africans are not excited and loving their own brands.
Yes.
Maybe I can play a role in helping to change that situation. Wow. And maybe I shouldn't make it a job. And that's why I started Brand Africa.
Wow.
So Brand Africa then became my non-profit channel where I put in the money myself to be able to change the narrative about African brands. First, to raise the awareness of the disconnect between, as Ali Mazrui says, the people who consume what they don't produce and produce what they don't consume. I said, in order for us to change that, we need to raise the awareness because you see what gets measured gets done. Yeah. So now we have a metric. Now people seeing the metric, they're like, wow. So now with that wow, now we can build the how.
Wow. That's really amazing. And as everybody can see, that Doc has even pushed us a bit further to Brand Africa, and then we will take him a bit back just to understand some of the key things, because as we say, my journey to the top is really to be able to learn from our incredible leaders, some 2 key lessons. And now working in the US with Colgate, how was it like, especially for an African? And also coming from the apartheid mindset and all the challenges that we've experienced in the apartheid regime, and also globally, the stereotype of racial issues and the gap. And then you being in a new country, working in a new firm, an international brand. How was it?
Well, I mean, I had a very short tenure, but an impactful tenure at Colgate. Yeah. Because when I was living in the US, living in this 44th floor apartment, which then cost $2,500, which even in today's numbers is still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money. So
and that was 30 years ago.
Yes. If we put it in the context, we are like close to 50,000 rand. But that's back in the days. Yes. Wow.
And when I look at it, I always say, this was crazy. Well, I didn't pay for it because I couldn't afford it. The company paid for it.
Yes.
You know? But when I look back on that, and I look back on how I presented myself, because I had a very good mentor, Philip Barry, who then started saying before we even started, says we need to be aware of how you present yourself.
Wow!
Because the first thing they're gonna see is
who you are,
how you look.
Yeah.
Then they'll ask how you think.
Yes.
Later, but you don't want them to start being fixated with just how bad you look.
Wow.
So got that out of the way. And that's interesting. He also internally also say, you must take initiative. You can't wait for people to do things, to show you things. You must go out of your way to ask the questions, to find solutions for the challenges that they're giving you. We'll be working until 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
I remember one Christmas Eve, I left the office at 9 p.m.
Christmas Eve. Wow.
And I said, I think in a way it began to shape how I work as well.
Yes, exactly.
That it began to shape my working culture.
Yeah.
That I don't watch the clock, I watch the results.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And also, if I have to add, because I remember back in the days, based on what we're able to read, the excitement at work was not really there. Where it was more, you go to work and up until you get your pension. So people were exactly like maybe robots on a pilot plan, and few people were really into that mindset of saying, I work for the results, because majority of the people were watching the clock. They know that the clock in at 8 in the morning or 6, they go home. And then now that transition, you coming back to South Africa, how did it play into you? Because I know that there was an expectation probably when you came into South Africa with Colgate again.
Well, I kept the same culture.
Wow.
I kept the same work culture. I kept the same packaging. I always wore suits every day for my entire corporate career.
Wow.
Including at Nike where there was stickers, I wear suits. And I was like, and I was quite astounded to see when I first came in back home and I saw some colleagues who were more educated than me, or similarly educated rather than me, and they were working in the factories. But then they also looked the factory part.
Wow.
Because, sometimes, as a friend of mine, Felicia Mabuza, always said, he says, you must dress the way you want to be addressed.
Wow.
Must dress the way you want to dress. So, and I think it's in every aspect of how you present yourself. Of course, that was then. And I used to come in and they used to start at 8:30, and at 4:30, they clear out. And it was very unusual for me at that time because I never got to that stage.
Yeah.
And even when I left and went further, I only got to the stage when I was at Sun International because I hated the product.
Yes.
I realized that another important lesson for me is if you hate the product, don't join the company.
Wow.
So I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do lines, I don't gamble. So I cannot work for any of those companies.
Wow.
Because I need to be passionate about them.
About it.
I need to be able to consume them.
Yeah.
I need to love them.
Yeah.
And that has never left me, even up to today.
Wow.
So that working culture, the choices of associations and partnerships, all the same, even up to today.
Wow. No, I think that's phenomenal. And then now, because for you to make such a decision, it's a part, and I think it's a huge piece. I love it on the Traveler when I read it's entitled "You Are Unemployable." That's journey, and I was thinking because it's even back there where you could manage your degree, especially your experience from overseas, where company can leverage on that. But now the reality of standing on what you believe, because you don't drink, you don't smoke, and you say, okay, opportunities that are coming in those industry, I'm not up to it. So now if we are putting it into the reality of South Africa and the reality of Africa with unemployment challenges, the numbers are staggering. How do you believe that someone can really have that courage of saying that because this product does not align to me, I can still wait for the right opportunity?
I was looking at my psychometric profile, which was taken in 2002, and it's on four quadrants. In the one quadrant was risk-taking and creativity.
Yeah.
The other one was on nurturing and celebratory. The other one was on detail. I think the other one was on numbers or profit and numbers as in money. I was low on money. I was low on detail. I crashed the scale on risk-taking and celebratory and nurturing because And they did that study and it's a very interesting study because they looked at you now
Wow.
and they also look at you when you're a child.
Wow.
They were able to plot. And mine was matching.
Perfect match.
So
Wow.
it meant I haven't changed as a person.
Amazing.
Or I have not needed to change. Because, sometimes you need to change.
Yes. Yeah.
So, if you're a father, for example, if you're now married and you're a father, you can't be out at laps all the time.
Yes.
Because now you've got responsibilities. So you need to change.
Yes.
But in terms of the values, in terms of the personality, who I am and how I do things, that never changed.
Wow.
So the way I navigated all chances and opportunities that came to me, because I'm high on risk,
Yes.
I could take those risks. But I was also living in the different times.
Yeah.
Because I was living during apartheid, it's just post-apartheid.
Yes. Yes.
Were the quote-unquote first blacks.
Yes.
There were opportunities for people like me.
Yeah.
And we were in the opportunities. And so it was a balanced risk.
Yes.
I was never left out of pocket, if you will.
Wow. 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 And now if we have to bring it now to our time, because the reality, as you say, they are totally different. How do you advise current leaders or aspiring leaders to juggle or to balance it?
I still think you still must be true to yourself.
Yes. Wow.
You still must be guided by a clear set of values. You must be self-aware. You must be confident. That should never change. But of course, you have to balance it now with the realities.
Yeah.
So the way I always say is try and go to places which appreciate who you are.
Yeah. Wow.
Instead of trying to fit into a place which is different from who you are. Because you're going to spend a lot of time unhappy in that space. And I think being unhappy is more problematic than being rich.
Yes.
Because even rich people, they commit suicide because they're unhappy.
Wow. Wow.
But happy people can sleep outside. Joy is the most important currency. So you have to balance this by asking yourself, is it worth it for me to be here? Am I living my true self?
Wow. Wow. I think I really just love this masterclass because even when you go through the books and the publication of Doc, this question of am I worth it? It's a repetitive question where constantly this is a question of really self-awareness and being able to be aware of the surroundings and the impact you have on that surrounding, vice versa. And then now, if we have to take it into that stage of your life, I remember when I go through the book, you had an exciting meeting that you were looking forward to with the managing director of the agency, and then the person had to share a tough news with you because you were like, okay, maybe I'll get a new job and all of it. And the person had to work exactly based on the profile that you see of a risk taker, telling you that based on the feedback of your psychometric test, I believe that you should go the route of entrepreneurship.
I couldn't become an entrepreneur because I was inexperienced.
Exactly.
I'd only been out in the marketplace for 2.5 years. And I didn't understand, which is another important thing.
Yeah.
What value am I going to add? So you must always ask yourself a value question.
Yeah.
What value are you adding? What value can I add having worked for 2 years? Unless, of course, I was selling a thing. Because if you're selling a thing, a water, bread, or something, you are adding some kind of value.
Yeah.
But I was more the cerebral value. So if it's cerebral value, my cerebral was not quite developed yet. My thinking process was not well developed. My understanding of brands was not well developed. So I didn't believe that I was qualified enough. So when he says to me, I'm unemployable, Mike Sherratt, when he says to me, I'm unemployable, I looked at him and said, this man has just taken away my opportunity. I was thinking I'm going to get a new house, a new car,
Your-
new clothes.
your
It's
Mercedes,
just
your
Mercedes.
dream.
He took them all away from me.
Wow.
It's unemployable.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, I was at Nike a year later. Or a year and a half later, I was at Nike. So I didn't really listen to him. I listened to myself.
Wow.
Because my when I look in a mirror, when I listen to my heart and my head, it said, you are not ready.
Wow.
It said, yes, he is right. You shouldn't be working for somebody. But then you must wait until the right time, when you are able to offer some value.
Wow. Wow. And in between, what was fascinating, it's when you publish Conquering the Market. I think it was really in those moments where probably you're trying to figure out things and that's motivation came.
Well, I wrote Conquer the Job Market, my first book,
Yeah.
within a year of being back in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I wrote it because I wanted to share. So, I told you the other part of my psychometric is sharing, nurturing, celebrating, empowering. So I wanted to share with others here the first blacks.
Yes.
The opportunities are here now. So how do we position ourselves for opportunities? Because I now had learned a few things in my time out of the country.
Yes.
How to present yourself, how to write your story, how to sell yourself, how to interview. I thought, let me share those. Do a bit of research, look at what I learned, some research, I wrote a book, I put it out. But then the book shows exactly who I am as well. It means this guy was confident. Within 1 year of working, he writes a book.
Wow.
That takes some confidence.
Exactly.
He's just gotten employed himself. But that's what we should do.
Wow.
We should constantly be lifting as we rise and sharing as we're getting.
Wow. Wow. And going through the book, what's amazing is you are a prophet. Because when I read from the sweat analysis all the way to the closing where you had to write your follow-up after the interview, majority, I can say 90% of what you shared 30 years ago, still relevant.
The book is incredible.
Yeah.
I must say it's what, because I think when I write, and I try to do it everywhere, and I think the traveler is similar in a way.
Yes.
When I write, I try and write for posterity.
Wow.
I don't write for today. And when I look at the book, a lot of people who are now CEOs, they're directors, and they tell me that book, because when I wrote the book, it was the first book by an African on the subject of selling yourself. Wow. And they tell me that book helped them, empowered them, shaped how they go into corporate. Every time I hear that, I'm always blown away because I said, this is incredible. As a 28-year-old, I didn't think so. I thought I was just contributing my knowledge. Little did I know that I was actually lifting others who were in a similar situation as me by sharing the little information that we have. Because remember, we are all of us can contribute. All of us can create value. All of us have some value. Because the value could be that little bit you share could be a whole lot to another person.
Wow.
So the book, of course, is about as relevant then, now as it was then.
Yes.
I should update it.
Yes,
but
we
it
are
is
so
still
excited.
a relevant book.
Yeah.
Because the principles are the same. The principles are the same, which is in the sweat analysis, understand yourself.
Yeah.
Then you have to position yourself. Yeah. Then you have to package yourself. Then you have to sell yourself.
Wow.
The principles are the same.
Yeah. And even when you go through the templates, because what I really love with the book, it's demonstrate your heart. Because you did not only give the theory on the book, but it came with a practical guide.
I wanted the book to be able to be a workbook type.
Yeah.
As you are reading and learning, apply.
So
it was a very practical book, if you will.
Yes.
And I tend to write that way. I tend to write in a way that you can immerse yourself. So whenever I post, whether it's on social media, and I get feedback I feel like I was there. Wow. And when people read The Traveler, and when they read my post on social media, they always say, I was on the same journey through you.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And again, these, especially the traveler, which we will cover, fascinating piece. And the good thing with doc material is when you read them, you really travel in time with him. So you forget the time. You are like, you immerse yourself and identify yourself. Is really taking you on those wonderful journey. And one of the good things that really caught my attention is you use the book as a way of uplifting and giving. And the book opened a door, a great door for you.
How amazing was that?
Yes.
Because,
take us through that journey.
Because I wrote the book, then I'm sitting at a company at Leo Burnett / Appear International.
Yeah.
I just joined 8 months. And I get a call in the middle of the day or something. Some Dutch guy, 5 o'clock or so, says, we'd like to talk to you. I said, who are you? He says, well, I'm Willem Heiting. I'm at Nike. I'm like, sports company. It's not going to work for me. I need to work for a proper company. I can't be out there selling sneakers.
Sneakers.
Right?
And you are a suit guy.
I'm a suit guy.
Yes.
Imagine.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, fine, I'll come listen because it's an American company.
Yeah.
I started in America then. So I come through and I listen to them and I'm still not convinced. Like, no. Anyway, on the way out, I said to him, how did you find out?
How did you
Where did you find my name, my number? And he says, we interviewed a lady called Louisa Matthews, may soul rest in peace, for the job. And she said she's not qualified, but she knows somebody who can do this job.
Wow.
And they gave them my number. That's how I ended up at Nike.
Wow. So
In gifting,
yes,
you are actually receiving yourself. Because a gift doesn't take anything away from you. It refuels you.
Wow.
So when you give, you open up for more blessings.
Wow. Wow. It opens doors and you don't know which one, when, and where. So it's really, really amazing. And then now, if we have to discuss like some of the practical takeaways from those journey, from Palmolive to Nike, for example, those experience that you had, even with the organization where it was gambling, you were like, okay, this has nothing to do with me, SAST International. What were some of these key takeaways that you believe for leaders it's very important through those 4 journeys, those critical journey, Palmolive, SAST International, PR agency, coming to Nikes?
I think the first important thing, and which is applicable even today,
yes,
is to understand that first you yourself are value, and you must be adding value. To me, that's important.
Yeah.
That you are selling something. You are not just doing a job. You are selling something of value. So you need to understand how to package that value. Personal branding, if you will.
Wow.
I think the second thing I've learned throughout that is the importance of having a very clear set of values. What you will and will not do. And I think if you look at both books, in a way, particularly The Traveler, speaks a lot to those values.
Yes.
Very important to be value-centric. I think the third thing is the power of authenticity, of being true to yourself. I've been true to myself all the time. And most important as well is understanding that you must lift as you rise. So throughout, whether it's writing a book to share with others, whether it's bringing others on board, whether it's teaching or all those, you're actually lifting others. And to me, this has been fundamental parts of how I've shaped myself, or who I've become, of what has built me rather.
Wow. Now that's awesome. Again, these are great pattern because it's consistent throughout, and the repetition exercise of really knowing your values and generosity, where you're really able to give. And one of a wow moment as I was reading one of the Traveler, it was the conundrum of the title, Conquering the Job Market versus personal branding. So maybe take us into that situation. Yeah.
In the 80s, 90s,
Yeah.
and coming from an Afrocentric and Africa,
Yeah.
in Africa, we speak in communal terms.
Yes.
We don't speak in individualistic terms.
Yeah.
Because where we and how we are raised, we speak as a people,
Yeah.
not a person. Now, the concept of personal branding is very, if you will, then was very un-African.
Yes.
But it wasn't just un-African, but it was also an antithesis of corporate. Because remember, you get appointed for a job,
Yeah.
and you are just one of the 5 or 100 or 1,000 sheep. You're all the same. That's why you said earlier, you're all the same. You join a company, you work for 30 years, you get your watch and your bike, and then you go retire, sit in a sunset because you're all the same.
Yes.
But times have changed.
Yeah.
Because now, as Guy Browning said, we're in the age of mass individualization.
Wow.
So every single person needs to stand out. Not stand out as in being a star, but stand out in terms of what value are you adding? Wow. Not what, because when you yourself are maximizing your contribution and everybody's maximizing your contribution, we are able to perform magnanimously as a collective. But in times past, you just have to look like everybody, fit to everybody, come in at 8 o'clock, leave at 5 o'clock. You didn't need to stand out. You just need to step in.
Yeah.
But now you need to step up.
Step up. Wow. 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 We love it. Amazing stuff. Your love for Africa.
But I'm African. That's such a difficult question to ask. Because I don't hear people asking Europeans about their love for Europe.
Yeah.
But when an African in a different part of a continent, particularly I guess South Africa, which has always been sort of separate from the rest of the continent, is people always say to me, "Oh my gosh, your love for Africa."
Yeah.
I'm African.
That's
who you are. What else should I love?
Yeah.
Because when I walk in the middle of Oxford, in London, or Fifth Avenue in America, or somewhere in the rest of the world, they can tell I'm not from there.
Yeah.
I don't look like them. And they don't have far to guess. They always say, you must be African, or you must be a former slave from Africa.
From Africa. Either way, you
cannot
to Africa.
escape it. So even in the middle of America, a black person they know is a former slave. Wow. Because they came in a boat 400 years ago from Africa. So I don't have a extraordinary love for the continent. I have a deserved love for the continent.
Wow.
Because we as Africans are the only ones who can build Africa.
Yes.
I think we're living in beautiful times now because we've got somebody like Donald Trump,
and
you've got the other guys in Germany and everywhere else,
who
are now teaching us or reminding us the importance of putting your country first. Putting your continent first.
Yeah.
The Europeans are putting their continent first. Trump is putting his country first. Because you see, if you put your country first, you're then able to build the capacity and the capability and the
innovation,
everything of the country.
Yes.
You're able to make enough to be able to give you the opportunity to have the leverage to do what Trump is doing. Yeah. So America in 1933 came up with the Buy America Act. And they legislated that at least 50% is now 65 of everything they supply the government and the state-owned entities must be made in America.
Wow. Not
negotiable.
Yeah.
Because that's why they're so powerful.
Yeah.
Because they were then able to build the base to be able to direct their agenda in America and in the world.
Wow.
That's why they are the nation, the world's police, the world's funder, the world's everything. We are the charity case of the world. Our job as Africans is to build a better Africa, to love Africa more than anybody else. Because if you love something, you'll invest in it, you'll nurture it, you'll protect it. But if you don't love it, you'll leave us in a situation where we are now. Poor, jobless, inequitable, unequal. It's a challenge.
Wow.
We are the only ones who can love Africa.
Wow. So that's really fascinating, and it's really, you speak about it, you portray it, you live for it, and now on your incredible journey.
Ordinary journey.
Pardon? Ordinary journey. Yes, which and one of the things that everybody knows, that you've set your foot on every part of Africa, every country, you've covered it. And another blessing is all across the continent, you've been there, from the North Pole to Antarctica, and made sure that you're a real African. And really, that's a discovery, that's ordinary journey of discovery and desire to understand Africa deeper and deeper. We'll be quite happy just for us to understand it from your perspective.
Well, a lot of us claim to be African. And a lot of us want to speak with authority about the continent.
Yeah.
The problems of the continent, if you look at some of the negative images about the continent, they are written by people, study was made, 63% of whom have never been to the continent. But the volumes of books on Africa are written by those people. I wanted to be a credible African ambassador.
Wow.
I wanted to be an authentic African. I wanted to speak with authority when I say Africa. The same authority as I have when I say South Africa.
Yes.
I wanted to have the same authority when I think about the rest of the continent. Because that way, I am no longer just a passenger on this, or an observer rather, on this African story. I'm able to contribute to the story with credibility and authenticity.
Wow. Wow. So we really love it. And then, first one, which one was it outside of South Africa?
First one out of South Africa. I think my first country outside of South Africa.
Yes.
Outside of South Africa was
From an African perspective.
From an African perspective.
Yes.
So that will be 1980. Wait, I'm trying to remember now. I always get them confused between Botswana and
Botswana and Uganda, or which one? Was it?
Uganda, but I think it was Uganda. I think I was invited by the BBC to have a talk about some challenges and issues. I was on the radio there. Or I was in Nigeria on an assignment for SAA, a public relations assignment to SAA. So it was between those countries. Actually, I do know, I just always forget which one it was between Nigeria. It was Uganda.
Wow.
It was Uganda.
Wow.
And then it was interesting actually that I went to Uganda, because I just remember getting out of the plane and seeing the plane that was burnt during the Israeli, I think it was the plane was parked outside of the airport for a long time. I think it was the Israelis who burnt the plane or something like that.
Wow.
But an interesting journey into that. I went to a space I've never known, never seen. When I went to Nigeria, which was I think the second place, the second would be in Botswana, because my grandparents are from Botswana.
Yes, yeah.
So that would have been in 94. I'm wrong. Botswana was my first country.
Wow.
Because that's where my grandparents come from.
They come from, yeah.
Because I'd gone to a funeral. Then I went to Uganda next. Then I went to Nigeria. So I did Southern, East, West Africa.
And when you were there, baby, were you envisioning that, okay, maybe down the road I will do from Cape Town to Cairo, I'll be.
No, I was like your typical African.
Yeah.
I was like a typical African, South African rather. I was a typical South African. Because I'm not coming from a country which has just been liberated. The infrastructure is top class.
Wow.
We have all the infrastructure. So I arrived in these countries which got their liberations in their 60s. And I'm looking at how us Africans have destroyed them. And I'm looking at this as, just want to stay in South Africa. It's a better country. That's how us South Africans we think.
Yes.
We look at this dilapidated infrastructure, lack of resources and all this. And I was outside of a bank in Nigeria and they were selling foreign currency outside. Just outside. Not hiding under a tree.
No. They're outside in the public.
There's a main bank.
Yeah.
They're selling it right outside. I'm thinking, this can't be in a place like this. The traffic, even then.
Yeah.
But of course now, with time, but then you can see I was looking at the continent through a Western lens.
Wow.
Because South Africa was quite Westernized. As much as we discriminated, we looked at everything through a Western lens. So I was looking at the rest of the continent then. It's like, oh, Uganda, Nigeria, I'm sorry. Botswana is so rural. I was looking at, that's a Western lens.
Yeah.
And then when I got older, and I began to appreciate every country for and with its challenges and its opportunities.
Wow.
I began to look no longer at the obstacles, but rather at the opportunities, what the country is capable of. And I began to also appreciate the beauty in every country.
Wow.
And I started intentionally searching for the positives and the beauty of the continent. And in a way, that's what I sort of did in the Traveler's Book.
Yes.
Is it reflects my observations of the opportunities, what we can be better at as a continent.
Yeah, and cementing you being that brand ambassador that you are. So I think with the African Union, they must make sure that Doctor has an ambassadorial passport.
I could never be a politician.
Yeah, because of the brand Africa that you represent.
Yes.
And I can say, and many of us can attest to it, that you represent it better than other politicians.
Appreciate
and
that.
you
Very
do
kind
it.
of you.
You do it really with love and changing, as you say, the narrative of Africa. And
I'm not doing much, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm just being myself.
Wow.
And that's all we ask every African.
Yeah.
Be yourself wherever you are. Represent, be aware of where you are. Look for the positives. Tell the story as you see it. Do not try and gloss over the continent, the country. Just be authentic and be honest. And that's sort of what every one of us can do. And when we talk about changing the narrative, you don't change the narrative by necessarily writing something, taking a picture of something. You change the narrative through your actions.
Wow. I think it's again, it's really a representation and a responsibility for us. When you say it's, I think it's really a call to all the African for us to go back to the drawing board.
Because we have nowhere else to go.
Wow.
But Africa.
Yes.
The Europeans in Africa, they always can go back to their ancestral homes. They always can go to Holland, to Germany, to everywhere else. Even Trump now has said, I will resettle you here in this country.
Wow.
So they have the option. Our option, the only option is Africa. Yes. So if your only option is Africa, then the best you can do is to make Africa great. The best you can do is to contribute to a better Africa because you have nowhere else to go. Yes, you can move to America. Yes, you can move to England, but you will always be a foreigner there. But you'll never be a foreigner in Africa.
Wow. And this is a big call. And when we're looking at it with all the tragedy taking place, especially African who are dying on the Mediterranean with the pursuit of a better life on the other side, it really brings us into that call and responsibility of saying that we are not going anywhere. And the fact that we are here, we need to really make sure that this is the place.
And we must hold those that we put in power accountable.
Yes.
The problem with us Africans is we are forever grateful instead of forever setting the standards that we want to have. So us as Africans, if you look now, is we vote every 4 years, 5 years, 7 years. We're constantly voting to put people in power.
Yes.
But we are really not putting them in power to serve us. We are put them in power to serve themselves and to turn them into deities.
Yeah.
Because, when they're running for elections, what do? They come, they sit with us, they eat fufu with us, they eat ugali with us,
Yes.
they sit on the floor of us because we don't have chairs,
Yes.
and they give us T-shirts, they give
All
us
the
a bag,
promises.
they give us a bag of rice or a bag of meal, and then when they become presidents or leaders, they now drive with a convoy that separate them from us. They have security who keep them away from us.
Wow.
What harm am I going to give you? Because I'm the one who put you there.
Yes.
We should also teach them that we're also the ones who can take them out of there
Yeah. Wow.
if they don't perform.
Yeah.
Because that's why they're called public servants.
Yeah.
They're not public gods.
Wow. No, and this is really one of the major challenge, and we need to be honest about it, that leadership is our biggest pitfall in Africa, where there's a lack of leadership. And when you were talking...
Salif Johnson put it better.
Yeah.
Salif Johnson said, this continent is not poor. It's just poorly led.
Yes.
But we cannot blame the politicians.
Yeah.
We can only blame the citizens.
Yeah.
Because they are the ones who keep them there.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter when some people like to say, oh yeah, but they cook the books, they change the numbers to stay there. But we can run them out of those places.
100%.
I mean, you've seen what they've done in different other countries. They have ran through their parliaments. In Kenya, you saw
Yes.
recently with the Gen Z, they showed you that if you push us,
We are those who are in power.
and you saw in 2010 or 2011, 2013 with the Arab Spring,
Yes.
they left with their tails behind them running to different countries.
Wow.
So because it was a simple reminder that you are there on a job. You are employed. You're a public servant. And if you don't serve, you must step aside.
Wow. If you don't serve, you must step aside. And that's really a big call. And while we are on the African subject, one of the biggest challenges that we're facing at the moment, Doc, is the issue of peace that you can see from all the corners of Africa. It's boiling. And
if you look at Sudan, South Sudan, there's so many unresolved issues in the continent.
Yeah.
And they all come down to the one thing, territoriality. If you look at what happened in Rwanda in 94, which was tribalism.
Yeah.
South Sudan was about territoriality.
Yeah.
Rwanda was about tribalism. And you can see those are still the problems which we have which are persistent now. You look at Mali.
Yeah.
It was also factionalism.
Wow.
So between factionalism, tribalism, and territoriality, the continent has never found peace. And sooner or later, we have to find peace.
And with this,
Sudan is so beautiful. And when I look at Sudan, when I went to Sudan, it was so amazing. I couldn't believe how beautiful. I couldn't believe that this is the country that's got more pyramids than Egypt.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't know that. But this is a country now where you can't walk around because there's machine guns everywhere else.
Yes. Yeah.
because there's factions fighting for power.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
And the fact, and even Sudan, South Sudan, which got their independence from Sudan
Yes.
in 2011, internally they're still fighting factionalism.
After separating.
The first fight was separation.
Yes.
When they got the separation, now they start focusing on selfish tribalism.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge of the continent.
Wow.
The challenge of the continent is, what type of Africa do we want?
Wow.
I know we've got the African Union that speaks about an integrated, a prosperous, and a peaceful continent.
Yeah.
We're never going to be prosperous until we find peace. And we're going to find peace until we come together and understand that the countries we live in are everything that we have. And we all are citizens, not just of that country, but of the broader Africa.
Yeah.
And we must put the fight, or the pursuit rather, of peace in the same way that we pursued independence. Because if we put the same energy, we will be peaceful. Right now, you look at, we fight over elections, fight for power. We saw Mozambique recently, fights. Because we can't accept this. People have won.
Wow. No, it is really a call, and especially you are well placed with the wisdom that you have gained throughout all your journey, your interaction with leaders and all of it. And what really we want as African is peace. And practical, I don't know, apart from peace, are there any other advice that you believe it's quite important for us in order really to live that period of gold and harmony on the continent?
I think we need to, as I said, we need to find the one thing we will all die for. And to me, the one thing we'll die for is that peaceful Africa, is that united Africa.
Yeah.
We need to fight for peace and unity, because otherwise we'll never be prosperous. We'll never be truly independent. We'll still be owned, because that's why our debt is at $700 billion, and we're spending 65% of our GDPs to try and pay off the debt. And that's why we're paying additional amount in interest of $4 billion on our sovereign debt, because of the negative perception of the continent.
Wow.
We need to fight for our second independence. So the fight now is for the second independence of Africa.
Wow.
The first independence was from colonialism. The second independence is from ourselves.
Wow. Wow. No, with this incredible word of wisdom and practical advice from Dr. Thebe. And Doc, now coming into branding. So one of the things that you've traveled across 54 countries in Africa. And that experience from a branding perspective, can you maybe take us through some of the greatest wisdom that has impacted your strategy of branding through your journey on the continent?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I did when I started Brand Africa in 2010 was to be able to understand the state of brands in Africa, or the state of the African brand. And I mean, it was just stunning to discover that on average, on the last 15 years, only 20% of the brands that Africans admire are made in Africa. So it means that there is a real opportunity or a challenge to build great African brands. But I think the other thing that's inspiring that I've seen throughout the journey from a branding perspective is to look at there are pockets of excellence, and they have been enabled by technology. So if you look at M-Pesa in Kenya, M-Pesa enables somebody from Nairobi to send money to somebody in Nakuru, in the rural Nakuru. It took access to financial services from 5%, 10% in 2006 to 70% in 2010. It shows you the transformative power of technology.
Yes.
Because now you look at a brand like MTN, which connects over 18 countries in the continent, enabling 18 people to transact and to communicate. Or Flutterwave. And then, of course, when you look at financial services as well, financial services is definitely, you now have multinational banks, businesses across the continent, from the Standard Bank, the Absas, and all those, EcoBank, and all those from Togo, a small country like Togo.
Yes.
So you can see that the power of brands to transform the continent is immense.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm advocating for Made in Africa brands.
Yeah.
Because with Made in Africa brands, the thing we learn is that people say that the triple challenges of Africa are what? Joblessness, inequality, and inequity.
Yeah.
But jobs is the number one. A continent that is 70% under the age of 30 and more than half of them unemployed is a problem.
Yes.
But we can employ them if we create Made in Africa products and brands. Because what do brands do? Brands create opportunities, they create jobs, they create industries create jobs. And then when people have jobs and industries, what do we have? We have a tax base. And with a tax base, we are able to contribute to our own development of our countries. We no longer have to borrow money overseas and increase our indebtedness and spend all our incomes trying to pay off the debt. So that vicious cycle, we can reverse that if we create Made in Africa brands. And that's what we need to do. So what you're observing now is there's a rise in Made in Africa. Slow, but it's there. Yeah. But it's not just in banking and financial services and technology. We're also looking at it in entertainment. Yeah. You look at a brand like Amapiano, which is now travels globally.
All across the globe. Yeah.
So now you say, if Amapiano is doing so well, the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, the people who create and sing Amapiano, are they doing well? The way that a Beyonce is doing, the way that a Chris Brown comes to Africa, to South Africa, sells out the stadium. But maybe you are seeing that because now Black Coffee can go close out, and Black Coffee and Burna Boy can go close out MSG, Madison Square Gardens in the US in New York. Yeah. So you can see the power of brands, the brands of our music, the brands of our fashion, the brands of our coffee from Ethiopia and Kenya and Uganda. Yeah. You can see if we begin to invest in those and we do the other important thing, which we beneficiate, because we should not be exporting so much raw material and importing so much finished goods. Do you know we import, AFDB estimated that this year, 2025, our food import bill is going to be $115 billion.
Wow.
How do you explain $115 billion import in a country, in a continent where we own 60% of the world's arable land?
Wow.
They should be importing from us.
Wow. I think it's really mind-boggling just to hear this. And how do you, especially with Made in Africa brand, you being a brand guru, what are the advisors that can build global brands and that can set our Made in Africa brand apart, and they can be reputable brand like the Nike, the Adidas, which are now generational reference globally?
Excellent question.
Yeah.
So Michael Porter, former Harvard professor of competitiveness, he said something I've never forgotten in 2000. He said a competitive advantage is not about being better than somebody else. It's about being different from somebody else.
Wow.
So it means for us to compete, to have a competitive advantage, we need to find our difference. Where is our difference? Our culture.
Wow.
We need to reclaim our culture. We need to get our culture as part of our branding story, because you cannot replicate a culture. You can copy anything else, but you cannot copy our culture.
It's authentic. Yeah.
We need to own our story. We need to get our stories, reclaim our narrative.
Wow.
Because the problem with Africa is all the stories about Africa are other people talking about us. It's not us talking about ourselves. Yes. So we need to raise our volumes. As Chinua Achebe said, until the lion learns how to tell his story, tales of the hunter will always be glorified. Wow. We need to protect our ideas. So because if you look at worldwide, Africa only accounts for 1.8% of the world's trademarks. Whereas places like Europe and America, then the 20s, 30s. Because whenever they think it, they protect it.
Yes.
And that's why we end up with challenges with Starbucks fighting us for our coffee in Ethiopia, the European Union fighting South Africa for rooibos, and Makosa being copied by Zara in London.
Exactly.
Because we don't protect our ideas.
Wow.
And we know that when we protect our ideas are very powerful, but also very lucrative for us. If you look at rooibos alone, now they're able to make, I think, something like 500 million or something of that by just protecting the rooibos as an indigenous South African product.
Wow.
So if you own our culture, we put our culture in, we tell our stories ourselves, we protect our ideas. I think those are some of the foundations of what's going to make us different in the world of brands.
Wow.
Because they cannot copy us on being us.
Wow.
And we cannot allow them to tell us who we are. We should tell our stories.
Wow.
And we should protect them.
Wow. Loving it. And as we are heading to the end, another question, it's, as a brand specialist, especially for leaders, how do you align your personal brand and your corporate brand and still make sure that both of them still relevant?
You go work at the places which reflect similar values as yourself. And if it doesn't work, you take your business elsewhere. It's as simple as that. Because you cannot force yourself to be of the same values as a company. But you can go to the company which has broadly the same values. That's how you align them. Unless you are not happy with your own set of values and you like theirs, then you must adopt them. The reason we are not happy at organizations is because we're not at the places which are like us, which fuel our passions.
Wow. Wow. Now, when we're talking about unemployment as a key thing, what are those major trends that you believe and major skills, especially for youngsters and leaders who are operating in the space of branding and marketing, that you believe that it's quite important for them to master those skill sets in order for them to stay relevant?
You know, in the past, we need to say that we need to come up with ideas, digital ideas, to succeed. But now we realize that we're in the digital era. So it's important for us to have the skills, the technological skills or digital skills to be able to survive where we are, but also to be able to project into the future. I mean, you see what technology has done. AI. I mean, AI is just going to change the world.
Yes.
It's just going to change the world. And well, it has changed it already, rather. It's changed the world. Yeah. So we need to be focused on the future and rather than the present. But in the present, we cannot survive without technology. So whether you're a marketer, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a priest, you need technology. To me, that's the most important skill that any one of us can have.
Wow. Wow. So we really need to move with the technology. And one closing question that has been posted to us, and then we'll leave it to you. Out of the 54 countries in Africa, if you have to rebrand one country, which one will it be? What will you do? Yes.
That's interesting. This is interesting. Because I think all our stories, all our brands, all our nation brands needs to be aware of the importance of nation branding. Because every single one country competes for a share of the wallet of tourism, the wallet of investment, the wallet of citizenship. Where do people want to live? Where do they want to invest? Where do they want to do? I think some countries are doing well. Like Rwanda, I think is doing very well. I think Ethiopia, I'd love to work on Ethiopia because The pace of change is incredible. But the most important thing I like about Ethiopia is the authenticity of the country. Because you see, the most important thing when you come into branding is if you can find the authentic core. Ethiopia has that. It is now about how to take that and to leverage that to go into the future. But I must say, Premier Abiy recognized that and is doing a phenomenal job of putting in place the infrastructure to finally unleash the potential of Ethiopia. What they now need to do, and Ethiopian Airways, of course, which is the biggest airline in the continent,
Yes.
one of the maybe top 3 in the world as well.
Yes.
So they've got the foundations. Now what they need to do is to take that whole story and shape that narrative and send it to the world. All of us need to be thinking of Ethiopia the way we think about India. When you go to India, they've got many pockets of poverty. But when you think about Ethiopia, India, when you think about India, there's many pockets of poverty, pockets of things which are not working well. But whenever we think about India, that's not what we think about.
Yes.
We think about incredible India, a country of possibilities, who are the IT engineers of the world.
Yes.
And that's how you have to think about a country. That no one country is perfect. But what is that one perfect thing that you can leverage to build a narrative about your place?
Wow. Amazing. And really, if leaders, which I know many leaders are following us, and politicians, these are practical examples. So with this, we'd love to give you an opportunity just to share a closing remark or a thought, being on the traveler or anything else that you think that it's quite important and inspiring out there.
I saw something beautiful and said, if you have to travel to 2 places, make it Africa twice. There is no place like our continent. It is the best place with the best opportunity. Every other place, as my friend Victor Tlamini once said, has got a past. We have a future.
Wow. Amazing. So with this, we are honored and privileged, as we said, to have Doc with us. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
And I've got my copies, and many people have the copies of The Traveler, which is a wonderful journey.
Thank
And my journey to the top will encourage all our viewer, listener to buy in and just learn from our GOAT, as I call him, and guru of branding, and really follow all his pages and social media, which we will share. And for us, we are quite happy and quite fortunate to know that many people have tuned in and they've followed from this particular program. So with this, Doc, thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Je vous en prie. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Have a good one and God bless you all.